Welcome back to Great Day. For the last decade, superhero movies have been consistent blockbusters for Hollywood, but many viewers have only seen the characters on screen. Byron Canaday is the owner of Gulf Coast Cosmos Comic Book Company. Comic books are where most of your favorite superhero stories first got started. Good morning.
Good morning.
All right, so you were one of those kids, grew up in the 70s and 80s where we had a lot less in terms of distractions, and you sunk into comic books. What were your first ones you read?
My first one was Spider-Man. Peter Parker, Spectacular Spider-Man. Then I moved into Amazing Spider-Man, but that was the running theme.
Yeah, what was it about it that just made you connect to it and you just weren't letting go?
It was the character connection. So I tended to be the quiet, bookish kid who was fascinated with science and all things, superhero.
Yeah.
So Peter Parker just kind of spoke to me as a character. Yeah.
You are one of the very few kids who says, when I grow up, I'm going to, and you actually did. You always wanted to open up a comic book store.
I always wanted to open up a comic book shop. Yeah.
I just got to say, I think comic books have much more importance today than probably ever. We are battling a vicious literacy problem in this city, across the country, really. And so it's like, what is it that's going to make a child read? This is a perfect setup right here. It's got all the themes: good versus evil, the intrigue of superpowers, and even knowing that superheroes have flaws, right? It's okay for all of us to have flaws, but what's your intention?
Absolutely. So the one perfect thing about comic books that people really don't truly pay attention to are the values that we are imbued with, like just turning the 28 to 32 pages. Yeah.
All right. So you decided to set up a store. Tell us about your store and purposely where it is.
Gulf Coast Cosmos is located in the heart of 3rd Ward, 2306 Stewart Street, on the corner of the Elgin and Emancipation.
Right across from the famous Project Row houses, right?
Right across from the famous Project Row houses.
Yeah. And when you walk in there, you'll find everything.
You'll find everything, but with an intention. The intention of the shop is to expand the narrative of comic book fandom. And so what you will see featured are a lot of comic book characters that are Black, brown, Asian, Native American, female-led, LGBTQ.
Yeah, it's funny. I was telling you about the conversation I had with my son the other day, and somebody said, well, Batman needs to be an African American next time. My son said, does it? How about you create a character that may feature someone who's African American? We don't need to fill in somebody else's character or take anything, out from there. Do something original.
This is absolutely true. Yes.
Yeah, but it's not new. There have been comics in the past featuring other folks.
Absolutely. So Black creators, writers, and artists have been creating comic books since 1947.
Yeah.
And so what we find really, really interesting are the new artists and creators that are coming out with their own stories and characters.
Yeah, we've seen a boom. Of course, I don't think that boom ever went away with superhero movies, but the superhero movies have fed people's interest in getting the comic books and things.
Absolutely.
All right, so things that came out this past summer: Spider-Man, Across the Spider-Verse, and Blue Beetle.
And Blue Beetle. So Blue Beetle is the most recent film that came out, and Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse is still killing it in the box office.
Yeah.
This past yesterday was National Cinema Day, so you got to go to the movies for $4, and for anybody seeing Across the Spider-Verse and Blue Beetle for $4, that was an instant.
Yeah, it was. All right, the popcorn to get you though.
Yeah.
All right, superhero on streaming services, Secret Invasion.
Yes, Secret Invasion. We hosted the final episode of Secret Invasion at the shop, and we had our large giant screen with the popcorn, of course, with the audience. That was one of Marvel's most recent episodic series on Disney Plus.
Yeah, and then Ahsoka?
And Ahsoka, which is also on Disney Plus, is part of the Star Wars franchise, and it features Ahsoka, the character who is one of the last Jedi.
Yeah, and then One Piece.
And One Piece. For those One Piece fans out there, rejoice, because One Piece is now coming out with a live action series. And it has been, for the longest time, one of the longest running manga and anime series.
Yeah, so for parents who think you're just watching silliness, going back to our point, it's not just silliness.
It's not just silliness. It really is not.
All right. You have some current comic picks. One of them is the antagonist.
Yes.
Godhood Comics.
Yes, from Godhood Comics, the antagonist is the story of two quote-unquote villains, last name spelled E-V-A-L, and they are
Evil.
they are in a mission to right wrongs. It's more of what you would see with The Boys, where good guys are really bad guys and the bad guys are really good guys.
Kind of like right now, what's right is wrong and what's wrong is right.
Exactly
yeah,
that.
Yeah,
Exactly
yeah,
that.
And comic books oftentimes they mimic the human condition
Yeah.
and society.
Right.
All right, the Natura 50/50 Comics.
50/50 Comics, which is a local comic book publication here in Houston. 50/50 Comics created the Natura. This is one of 4 comic book titles that they have, and it is one of our popular titles in the shop.
Okay, and Ethan Comics is Zufan.
Zufan, which is another local comic book publication here in Houston. It was founded by Besserat Debebe, who is an Ethiopian American. He wanted to tell stories about Ethiopian history, but in a way that was engaging for people to read. So what he did was these historical characters, these historical figures in Ethiopian history, he turned them into superheroes.
So I love the diversity, but at the end of the day, whether it's Ethiopian, whether it's whatever it is,
Yes.
whoever's playing the role,
Right.
it's all human. We
It's
all
all
share
human.
these characteristics. Okay, and then also in the store, not only the comic books, in which, by the way, the books look a little different than they may have looked when we grew up. The run of press on this is so pretty, right?
Right,
and
right.
super nice. But you also can find some collectibles and
Oh,
other
yeah.
things too.
Absolutely. And shirts.
And shirts, there you go.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right.
So this is a nod to Miles Morales, but also a nod to Houston, H-Town,
Yeah.
DJ Screw.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so we want to make sure that we are fully represented in all our geek and blurreddom.
Geek and blurred. Okay. All right. And then it's going to have to end with, again, I just have to do this to you.
Okay.
You're my first, you're my last, my everything.
You may okay.
With
you're
that voice of his, Barry White just showed up here today. You're
right,
my first.
right. My last,
My
everything.
Thank you very much.
You're
All
welcome.
right. For more information about Gold Coast Cosmos Comic Book Company, visit greatdayhouston.com. It's really a cool place over there in Third Ward.